Thank you for your testimony. Sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, I have 3 minutes. I promise to be focused, direct, and analytical.
For you, yes.
I am a member of the National Lawyers Guild. I'm an attorney and a former Red Squad Portland police suspect. When I represented anti-apartheid activists in the mid-'80s, I was put on the Portland Red Squad red list. I'm asking you to take a deep breath.
So I need to get your name, sir. For
Mark Kramer, Kramer. I'm asking you all to take a deep breath, and in view of the sea change from the last resolution in public, which had the full investigation as the threshold, to the current 48-hour notice we've gotten to analyze the criminal nexus, that's a sea change. It is major. I'm asking you to take a deep breath, consider the comments of me and other members on this nexus standard and not vote today. Secondly, because I fear that the die is cast, no matter what I say, I'm not going to be able to alter your perspective. I ask you to expressly take into account and to write into the SOPs a refinement of the criminal nexus standard. I think that is critical. Now, with a focus on the criminal nexus standard, the problem is it is not known, it is not vague, it is vague, it is not precise. What we ought to be using is ORS, Oregon Revised Statute, Reasonable Suspicion Standard. And I quoted to you from ORS 31615, a peace officer who reasonably suspects that a person has committed or is about to commit a crime. Reasonable suspicion, like probable cause, has legal meaning. So let me give you an example, Mr. Mayor. If 3 months from now, an officer comes to you and says, Mark Kramer, in a synagogue-related activity, decided to send some money to a social service organization affiliated with Hamas. We'd like to investigate him as part of the JTTF. What if they go further, because you say, I don't think that's enough. They go further and says, well, Mark has contacted a Muslim colleague in a mosque who is a former representative of Hamas, and they were joining together to raise $10,000 to send to Hamas. Now, is that enough? Under criminal nexus, we don't know. Under reasonable suspicion, you can contact the city attorney and ask for a specific memo that will tell you about what reasonable suspicion is. I want to tell you what the FBI manual is. I'm sure you have it, but it says, and now you're saying that JTTF on a criminal nexus can participate in a assessment. This is from the FBI manual. This is current SOP for the FBI. It permits an agent proactively or based on leads to scrutinize a person or a group for signs of criminal or national security threat. No particular factual predicate about a target to open an assessment is needed. Although the basis cannot be arbitrary or groundless, agents are allowed to use ethnicity, religion, or speech protected by the First Amendment as a factor as long as it is not the only one. The problem with criminal nexus, it permits Portland police officers in violation of Oregon law using the FBI manual to participate in assessment activity. That is the problem. I am asking you to adopt a criminal reasonable suspicion standard. And finally, the last thing I want to say is the resolution is unclear as to if the city attorney, number one, does not get the information that is needed, or number two, is not able to tell you, Mr. Mayor, or the officer who poses a query that that activity is consistent with Oregon law. This resolution does not say what it needs to say is under those two circumstances, the officer may not participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
If I could, Mayor Adams, I think this is an important point. Mark and I have worked together on a number of issues, and I want to address the point he raises. I'm concerned that you only read half of the be it further resolved. So I think it needs to be read in its entire context. So it says PP officers shall work with the JTTF only on investigations of suspected terrorism that have a criminal nexus, semicolon. Following that, it says, in situations where the statutory or common law of Oregon is more restrictive of law enforcement than comparable federal law, the investigative methods employed by PPB officers, Portland Police Bureau officers, working on JTTF investigations shall conform to the requirements of such Oregon statutes or common law. So I would agree with you if there was a period after the term criminal nexus, but we intentionally added the modifier of requiring that however one wants to identify or define criminal nexus, it must conform with Oregon law, where Oregon's law is more restrictive in specifically investigative tactics than is federal law.
Mr. Mayor, and may I respond briefly to Commissioner Leonard? Thank you, Commissioner Leonard. I just want to alert you to the other problem with the nexus language. It says, of suspected terrorism that have a criminal nexus, and I would respectfully suggest that we add to that language of suspected terrorism that have a criminal nexus to the suspected terrorist investigation. The reason for that is the FBI has a history of using a criminal nexus to go after tax fraud, campaign contributions, violation of mail fraud statutes. If we are to participate as PPB in a JTTF investigation, it should be connected to the terrorist activity and not connected to mail fraud, charity, or 1,000 of other federal applications. As it is written, it permits the sideshow, the diversion of police resources into those activities.
Mayor Adams, I am not actually consuming more time than would otherwise be consumed, because I was going to address this precise point in remarks when the next person is done, so I think this is a great opportunity. I appreciate Mark's dialogue with me. I have been listening to the testimony this afternoon, and I think there exists yet still some, maybe not a clear notion of what this resolution does, and your remarks make me think that we haven't been as clear from our side what we're doing here. The FBI, under the terms of this resolution, does not do what they do in every other jurisdiction in the United States that has signed an MOU to belong to a JTTF. In those jurisdictions, and this has been if you recall, Mark, Mayor Potter signed on to the resolution I wrote in 2005, withdrawn from the JTTF. So I'm not coming late to this party. This is something that I've initiated and felt strongly about. I object to having our officers directed by or influenced by federal agencies and or policies where they are contrary to Oregon and local law. This resolution, for the first time, sets a barrier between what the federal government may or may not think is a violation of law and what our police chief and commissioner in charge under Oregon law believe exists in terms of a violation. So in other words, they may think that there is some nexus to a tax fraud, or they may think there is a nexus connected to some other kind of violation. But what this resolution does is it speaks only to the city. It doesn't enter into an agreement with the federal government. It says to the city, only under certain conditions can you allow the federal government to access the resources of the Portland Police Bureau. And here are the conditions that those are. So in other words, if the federal government comes to us and says, we think there is a criminal nexus by person A to bank fraud, and under the terms of the JTF, we would like you to initiate investigations, our police chief and our mayor are prohibited from doing so under the terms of this resolution. It doesn't matter what the federal government thinks or says to us.
I thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I know my time is up. I would just ask that if you pass this, that specific commentary be reflected in the SOPs. I think it is critically important.
I agree, and I intend to have that happen.
No.
The last person was
The mayor
Lisa.
the mayor intends to have that happen under
Lisa Fay.